And welcome to a voice. Hello, and welcome to a Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Ben Ayton. We're back to discuss. There's a lot of things happened since we was last here. We just had the discussion of a 3-0 defeat at home to Norwich City. Claudio Ranieri, there's lots of speculation about whether he was going to stay or whether he was going to go. And then later on Monday, I think we saw that he actually left the position, and then Roy Hodgson was appointed a day later. So we're here to discuss the news of Roy Hodgson being the new Watford manager. We're going to touch upon the Watford transfer news for the month as well. Bit of a disappointing end to the transfer window from my point of view. And then we'll touch upon Burnley, third time lucky. But to discuss all of that with me, I'm here with my co-host, James Batchelor. James, how are you doing, mate?
Very well, thank you, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Thank you. Had a nice weekend with the family because obviously Watford weren't playing. Went to the zoo Sunday, then played football last night from six-a-side team. But yeah, all good, mate. You enjoy the break from not watching Watford?
Well, I was going to say that it's actually been a welcome break not having a football match this week. I feel like I've cleared my mind. I'm in a good state of mind ahead of this tough run we got coming up. So I think it was a welcome break, and obviously I'm looking forward to the Burnley game coming up this weekend.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. It's going to be a difficult watch. I'm not looking forward to it at all. But we'll touch upon that towards the end of the show. And it's not me and James this week. For you watching on YouTube, you don't know who it is yet. So we'll announce him now. It's Tom Wicks from the Golden Pages Fanzine. Tom, thank you for coming back onto the Voices of Vic. It's been a while. I think you did 2 or 3 appearances last season when we was in the Championship. Now we're a Premier League club. You're back on. How are you doing, mate? And how's things?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, no, it's great to be on with you guys again. I think I'm on. It's my hat-trick ball now, isn't it?
You get to take
on the podcast. But yeah, like James, feeling quite sort of zen, having not watched Watford for a couple of weeks or so. So yeah, looking forward for the stress starting on Saturday. And I've made the late decision to go up to Burnley. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Oh dear. Well, hopefully for you and the fellow Watford fans travelling all that long way up to Burnley, for starters, let's hope it goes ahead, and let's hope we bring something back with a defeat. A nice clean sheet and 3 points would do lovely. But yeah, like you and James are saying, it's probably everyone in Hertfordshire feels like we've just had a spa weekend at Champneys. We're all feeling nice and relaxed, our skin's nice and moisturised. But now Watford are coming back in action against Burnley this weekend. So the stress will return. The transfer window ended yesterday, and it was another stressful, dull day, I think, for Watford fans. I think a lot of us was expecting to maybe get one deal in, and we was all hoping for that to maybe a goalkeeper. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Firstly, Roy Hodgson is the new Watford manager, not head coach, manager. I don't think we've seen that before under the Pozzo's era. Be interesting to. I don't think there's much difference between a head coach and a manager nowadays. And with Roy Hodgson only being appointed for about 4 months, I don't think it really matters. I think it's just a bit sign of respect maybe for Roy Hodgson being called manager instead of head coach. For me, I'll come to you first, Tom. Happy with that appointment with Roy Hodgson? I don't think there was many candidates out there for Watford to really pick from.
No, I think as I've said before, it was probably the best candidate in our situation. It's probably not too attractive at the moment, with us sort of languishing in the lower reaches of the Premier League. Yeah, I'm quite happy with it. It's going to be another sort of firefighting mission, if you like, but I think that the real change needs to happen in the summer, from top to bottom. Maybe we'll come on to that later, but yeah, for now, happy with Roy and delighted to have Ray Lewinson back at the club. James is a bit too young to remember it, but yeah, no, I do just about remember the how different it was during those times. But he did a great job as manager. But yeah, we'll just be backing them and fingers crossed, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think it took a few people from surprise because obviously when you announce the sacking of Claudio Ranieri, everyone checks the the betting odds to see who's in there. I don't think Roy Hodgson was on there at all. I think it was a Monday night where it all started to kick off. I was playing football at 9 o'clock on a Monday night for my six-a-side team, and when I left the house, it was flickering between Sam Allardyce and Roy Hodgson's. Betting was suspended on both of them at one point, and I was like, "Oh God, what are we going to end up with here?" And then when I finished playing football, I checked my phone, and TalkSport actually did breaking news saying Roy Hodgson was going to be the next Watford manager. I was like, wow, we've actually gone from an older manager from Claudio Ranieri to Roy Hodgson, who's 74 years of age, but vastly experienced, James. He's led Fulham to their highest ever Premier League finish and Europa League qualification, where Fulham knocked out the likes of Juventus, Wolfsburg, Hamburg, all on the way to eventually losing in the final to Atletico Madrid. He was named 2010 LMA Manager of the Year with his Craven Cottage success. Hodgson was then appointed Liverpool manager for the following season and later took the reins at Premier League clubs West Bromwich Albion and Crystal Palace. He led the Palace to an 11th place finish in the 17-18 season, despite taking over at the club, and they lost in the first 4 games without finding the back of the net. Vastly experienced, James. Tom's quite pleased with it. I know there wasn't many options out there, but is that experience going to be vital for Watford to stay up this season?
I think it's a difficult one for me to answer. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not overly happy because, you say, is the experience vital, James? I think we had a really experienced manager in Claudio Ranieri, and that didn't work out for whatever reason. Watching Roy Hodgson taking the training session has certainly given me more confidence for some reason. I don't know why, but that video the club released was really, really good to watch, actually. I'm happy with it. I'm not overjoyed. There was definitely, much worse candidates out there they could have chosen. So I am happy with Roy Hodgson. But he has got a really, really tough task in his hand. And, you mentioned the previous clubs he's managed there. Liverpool especially as well, big names. However, he's been brought in for 4 or 5 months to do a job. And to be honest, whatever happens come the end of the season, I can't really see him continuing on after that. So for me, it's a very, very short-term solution. And hopefully, regardless of whatever happens in the summer, we can, build a longer-term strategy at the club, whether that be with a younger manager or an older manager. So I'm happy, but I'm not overjoyed.
Yeah, like myself, I wasn't overly pleased. I think a lot of Watford fans would have wanted a bit of a project manager next. I think we've all got a bit frustrated now with the Pozzo's model, where I think it's getting a bit dated now. I don't think you can hire and fire managers to keep you in this division. Sooner or later, it was going to catch up with us, and it's obviously shot ourselves in the foot. And now we're panicking to stay in the division, and we've looked to bring in an experienced coach to keep us up this year. I think Hodgson's maybe got the tools and experience to do that. I did like the videos that Watford did release. I liked the comments about, is a goalie's going to make a save or something? I thought that was hilarious. But Tom, I don't know if you watched it. Did you watch his interview on Hive Live? I thought it was a really good interview. At one point, he was going on a little bit, and I was watching it with my missus, and she went upstairs, and I said, "I'll leave you two to it," because he just kept going on. And I was like, I was enjoying my night with Roy Hodgson. Very insightful. I just loved to hear what he had to say about the club and his plans for the season. Did you enjoy that interview?
Yeah, I could listen to him for hours, to be honest. He's got obviously bags of experience. He's managed here, there, and everywhere, top clubs. Domestically, he's a former England manager. But yeah, I found it quite refreshing, his honesty as well. He wasn't over promising, and he acknowledged that there is a big task ahead, huge task for Watford, and it's going to be how the players react to his system. But yeah, I mean, coming back to his appointment, I was looking up a little bit earlier, actually, his spell at West Brom in 2010-11. It was almost identical to the situation that Watford are in now. He replaced Di Matteo in February with the club, I think, where West Brom were just outside the relegation zone on goal difference. He got them to an 11th place finish with a very average defence. I think that was the season that they set the record for consecutive Premier League games without clean sheets, which we're dangerously close to matching. It was 34 games, and he sort of turned it around and got them to a great finish, considering where they were. So if he can match the job that he did at West Brom, that'd be absolutely fantastic, I think.
Oh, I think we'll all take that. What are you expecting from a Roy Hodgson Watford side now? Is it just to shore up that defence and just try and make us a bit more solid?
Well, I think he's obviously a bit of a 4-4-2 merchant. I don't want to say he's a dinosaur, because you can't be a dinosaur having that period of time in the game. Recently with his England managerial job, I'm hoping he'll try and secure the defence a bit while also allowing our attacking quality to come through, because we've got amongst the best attackers in the bottom reaches of the league, and I hope that the players buy into his system, and we can become defensively solid. We can avoid getting that record, and perhaps play on the break a little bit with our quick players that are that have done relatively well in front of goal this year. That's the hope. It usually takes a few games to settle in. I think the first 3 at West Brom were all score draws, and at Palace he lost his first 3, so it might be a bit of a slow burner. But if he can get the players to buy in, I think we've got the talent to stay up. My personal opinion is I don't think we will, but hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I echo that, mate. It's going to be an uphill battle now, isn't it? It's going to be tight. At least we've got the attacking threat going forward, and we know we can score goals in this division. It's just keeping it out the other end of the pitch. James, do you think it's as easy as that? Just keeping the ball out the back of the net up the other end and letting our attackers do what they're paid to do up the other end?
Well, I thought it was quite interesting because I did watch the full interview as well, and I think there was a quote in the interview where he said he doesn't actually care about clean sheets at this point because he's brought in for such a short amount of time. What Roy basically said was, as long as we score 1 more goal than the opposition, he's happy with that, and I'd be happy with that as well. So if we win every game 2-1, come the end of the season, I'd be more than happy with that. But of course, look, clean sheets are a big issue. We've brought in defensive reinforcements to hopefully solve that issue in Kamara, Samir, and Kayembe. Will that work out? Well, only time will tell, but hopefully it will. I think Kamara especially looks like a really, really good talent. But yeah, obviously I want clean sheets. I don't want to be conceding goals every week because it's becoming a running theme and a bit of a joke now. So yeah, it was a good interview. And hopefully we can start with a positive result against Burnley.
Yeah, what I like the most about Roy Hodgson is his attention to detail and the organisation that he's potentially going to bring to Watford, because I do think we have lacked that this season. I think Ranieri, I don't think his attention to detail was massive for Watford, and I think we needed more from him. I don't know. For me, it felt like Ranieri came to Watford to pick up maybe his final paycheck. I don't think his heart was fully in it, personally. I just felt, especially during that time where the floodlights went out for Norwich home defeat, and I felt like he could have galvanised the troops. He could have got them all into a huddle and be like, come on, boys, let's try and turn this around. And there was absolutely nothing from him, and it just felt like he was a defeated man at that point, and I just wanted a bit more. And I don't think his heart was fully in the Watford job, where I think Hodgson's obviously is coming back, and he seems very motivated and driven, and he doesn't want a relegation on his CV. He's coming into Watford and he wants to keep us up into this division, and I think a 4-month contract could be perfect for him and Watford. And the sensible choice is to bring in his number 2 as well, Ray Lewinson, who many Watford fans will know from his time about 20 years ago now. Ray came in as a reserve manager under Gianluca Vialli. Obviously, Vialli ended up getting the sack, and Watford suffered financially massively from the collapse of ITV Digital. And Ray came in and he had to steady the ship. Really, he had to steer Watford. Well, he basically he had to keep Watford afloat. He had to cut the wage bill down dramatically. He had to keep Watford in the second tier of the division, where we was floating with relegation for a couple of years back to back. And if Watford dropped down to that third tier of the division, especially after the collapse of ITV Digital, you don't know where Watford was going to end up. We've seen other teams with the likes of Bradford, Grimsby. I think Stockport used to be further up the divisions, and they suffered massively with the collapse of ITV Digital. So I think Ray Lewinton's job was fantastic. And off the back of that, with a shoestring budget, he got us to 2 cup finals. Back-to-back season, he's got us to the FA Cup semi-final, where we lost to Southampton 2-1. And then he got us to the League Cup semi-final the following year, where it was 2-legged, I think, against Liverpool. So fans had to travel up to Anfield. We lost that game, and then back at Vicarage Road, where we lost 1-0. I think Steven Gerrard scored in both games. So you knew what Watford was up against that season as well. So and if we actually beat Southampton in the FA Cup, we would have played against Arsenal, who were a year or so away from being the Invincibles. So it would have been tough for Watford, but the achievements to get to the final 4 in both competitions in back-to-back seasons was just brilliant, considering the budget Ray Lewinton was on. And yeah, he was here between 2002 and 2005. So it's great to see someone who knows the club back. He's very passionate. He missed the Hive interview because Roy Hodgson said that he left Ray Lewinton behind at the training ground to carry on working, because they're here to get a job done, and they've got lots of work to do. So it was great to see that Lewinton, he was like, right, okay, I need to knuckle down here. Tom, I'll come to you first. Sensible to bring Ray Lewinton? I know it would have been Hodgson's decision to bring him back, but I imagine he would have gone to Gino saying, look, I want to bring in Ray Lewinton with me, and Gino was like, yeah, bring him along.
Yeah, he's his trusted right-hand man throughout, or certainly in recent years, a bit like Pearson and Shakespeare when they arrived a couple of years ago. I was very happy that Lewinton came. As you said, it was he managed the club. It seems like a lifetime ago, and yeah, the circumstance compared to now, you know, we had the old East Stand. I'm not sure whether it was closed off because it was unsafe at that time, but you know, we had players taking wage deferrals because of the financial situation. We had, you know, they were getting rid of the terrible sort of Viali players and the wastages that he brought in. So he did a really good job. It wasn't very exciting, but I think he had a hand in saving the club, to be honest, and making it what it is today, in effect, because needed someone, as you said, to steady the ship, and a couple of good cup runs brought the finances in, and yeah, that sort of steadied things for us. But happy that he's back. He's a bit of a link to Watford past, which I think we've been missing a bit under the Pozzos previously. Looking forward to seeing him in his shorts on the touchline that he's famous for. So that was probably what he was looking for when he couldn't make the Hive Live interview, looking in the club shop for a pair of shorts that he could wear.
I love that. Yeah, you can just picture it now, can't you? Yeah, I remember. I'm the same age as you, Tom, and I can't really. I was young, so I was starting to follow Watford, but I can't remember like the massive details back then. I know it was the struggle supporting Watford back then, and there was lots of disappointments and that. But the cup runs that he brought to Watford, the joy, and like everyone travelling up to Villa Park to play Southampton in that FA Cup semi-final was just what the club needed. They needed that lift. They needed like you say, the income as well. So what Ray Lewinton did for the football club was absolutely fantastic. James, he is the trusted number 2. He's been with Hodgson at Fulham. He was international level at England as well. So he knows what he's going to get. They both seem to be very hands-on, don't they, on the training ground?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't really follow on from what Tom said, because as we mentioned before the podcast, I am a lot younger than both of you, so I don't really have any recollection of that time. But yeah, exactly, Ben. I mean, they've been together for quite a long time. Tom made a good point about Nigel Pearson and Craig Shakespeare, when they come, they were like a solid partnership, and obviously they worked together at Leicester City. Similar situation here. Obviously, you mentioned England, Crystal Palace, Fulham. I think it's it's only positive, really. I mean, he knows the club, as you say. He'll want the best for the club. He's got interest in the club, so he'll want to do as best as he can. And yeah, for me, only positives from this situation. And if Roy Hodgson actually said in that interview, he would have taken on the job regardless of whether Ray Lewinson joined or not. But it is great that he has joined alongside Roy, and hopefully their partnership will only benefit Watford going forward.
Just going to talk about a comment that's came up. Someone's posted on YouTube. Christopher Ho, thanks very much for leaving us a comment. He's saying that Roy Hodgson is like an old school manager to keep us up. Then a project to rebuild. No, then a project manager to rebuild. He gives us the best chance to stay up, and then when we know where we are, we can plan ahead. A lot of people wanted that project manager this time round in the season. Tom, is that what you kind of wanted before Hodgson was appointed? Did you want someone where we could maybe have at the helm for a year or two, just to build something and give us a bit of stability?
I think that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? Really, we've had for years and years, probably since Javi Gracia, we've been sort of flip flopping between very short term appointments that were good for the situation that we were in, but never really going to be a long term project, if you like. The problem with the Pozzo model in that respect is that it is great sort of short term, or it started off as a great short term experiment, and it obviously proved very worthwhile, and we got to where we are because of that. But I think in the long term, we're going to struggle with the mismatch between a squad that's being assembled by people that aren't coaching the squad day to day. And I think you look at the more successful sides of our size, the Brentfords, the Brightons, even sort of Palace with Roy before, and Patrick Vieira now. They're trying to find a manager with a clear modern philosophy that they can mould the team around, not the other way round. So I agree. I 100% think we need to get a more experienced, a more project manager, if you like. But yeah, I don't think now was the time to do that. Now was all about someone to come in and put us in the best situation that we can to give us a chance of staying up in the Premier League. And I think we've burnt a lot of bridges through our managerial or head coach recruitment policy. So even the next appointment might not be a great one, but yeah, I think for now it was right.
Yeah, definitely. And Christopher Howell goes on again saying we can't project manage in a relegation battle. I expect Roy to do the job with some dull but totally required football. And I think that's the case, isn't it? I think with Watford now, the Pozzos, they want to keep us in the Premier League. If you end up getting a project manager, then you're potentially looking at relegation even more than bringing in a experienced coach to try and keep us in the division. So you can see what Gino and Scott's trying to do here. They're trying to keep Watford in the Premier League and give them the best chance of staying in the league. And then if we were to get relegated, okay, at least we've tried to keep us up with an experienced coach. But now we're down in the Championship. Let's rebuild. Let's get that project manager in, and it's a perfect opportunity to build a project to get us back up into a Premier League. Or if we end up staying in division this year, which is, I think all three of us can agree, is very unlikely. But if it does happen, at least we could maybe look to get a project manager that maybe comes in the end of the season, bringing his own team, his own philosophy, and rebuild from there. So I think what the Pozzo's done here, I think it's the right decision and the right choice in this circumstances. But we'll see at the end of the season, won't we, really? Right, so that's Roy Hodgson and Ray Lewinson ticked off the list tonight, boys. Just quickly before I go into transfers, Laura's put in a comment saying, let's hope Troy Deeney scores against Luton in a few weeks. I just hope Troy Deeney's fit, because I think he's been missing the last couple of games, because he missed the Derby game at the weekend when there was 2-0 up and then drew 2-2. By the way,
captain of Birmingham, actually, Ben, as well, Troy Deeney.
Yeah, so congratulations to Troy Deeney. He's been announced the club captain of his boyhood club. That must mean so much to him. And you know what he brings as a skipper as well. And I think Birmingham probably need that leadership on and off the pitch. I think I read a comment saying that just because I got the captain armband, it doesn't mean I'm going to be starting each week. I need to earn the right to be playing and that. But you know what he's going to be in the dressing room. But again, those boys up and that. Exactly what Watford have added in the previous years. And if anything, I think Watford have missed that little bit of like a Troy Deeney character behind the scenes this season, just to try and lift the boys a little bit. But yeah, congratulations to Troy Deeney for that. Just another comment that's came up as well from Paul Whitney. You boys are making me feel well old at 34 by not remembering Ray. Ray saved us, and I'd go as far to say as he's the second most important manager in our club's history behind Sir Graham Taylor. Paul, me and Tom are 33, so we're only 1 year behind you. But yeah, you must have a better memory than us. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying about how much Ray's done for the club and how he saved us and how important he is. I think I was listening from a Rookery end the other day, and they put him. I think it was Jason put him in their top 3 Watford managers. So he is highly rated and regarded from Watford fans. So I don't blame you for putting him in as number 2 there. So let's move on to the transfers or lack of transfers towards the end of the January. Obviously, Watford have brought in 6 players. Okoye has been signed from Rotterdam. He's going to stay with the Dutch club until the end of the season, and then be joining Watford. Kamara joined Watford. KMB, Samir, Samuel Kalu joined, and also we've got Yasser Asprias joined from the Colombian side. But there's work permit issues at the moment. I'm not sure what Watford know what they're doing with that yet, if he's going to be coming over to England soon, because I know he has started for Colombia within the last couple of weeks, which actually does tick the boxes for him to come over to England. It's just whether Watford want to see him develop more in South America, or they want to send him over to Udinese. But the transfer window is actually shut now for Udinese, so the only possible route would be England or to stay over into South America. So it'd be interesting to see what we do with that. Just touched upon Samuel Kalu, who we brought in last week. There was work permit issues. That's why it wasn't announced when Adam Leventhal said about it. It took about 3-4 days after that to it be officially announced. Watford announced the signing of Nigerian international Samuel Kalu on a deal until June 2025 from French club Bordeaux. The 24-year-old signs a 3.5-year contract with Watford. He's capable of playing on either flanks. Kalu is a versatile option in a competitive squad and typically operates on the right-hand side. I've seen a lot of comparisons with him and Emmanuel Dennis. Do you know much about him, Ton? Have you seen much? Is it just YouTube clips you've seen of Samuel Kalu?
Yeah, I've almost zero knowledge of plenty of these players that come in. You know, it's I'll judge them when they're putting on the yellow shirt. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube clips and copy and pasted of crackers that from 30 yards or whatever. But I think in terms of the transfer business that we've done, it was a criticism that we've often had under the Pozzos is that we do business too late. So I was pleased that was done early to get them settled in and to try and use this extra time to get them sort of hit the ground running. Ultimately, these are all players that haven't played in the Premier League before. I'm sure they're good players and their quality will shine through. But there's challenges with bringing in these sorts of players that they don't know the league. With the Samir against Norwich, I think the goal where he was he had a hand on him. I think he showed a bit of naivety there, perhaps by maybe not understanding the Premier League, and he might have got that decision in Serie A for Udinese, but not in the Premier League. So I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge for the new boys coming in. They're going to have to hit the ground running. For me, the squad lacks a little bit of Premier League know-how, but I appreciate that we've got financial constraints, and we've had players that have come in before, the sort of unknown players that have turned out to be real gems. So hopefully, we can one or two of them will be rough diamonds. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit difficult for me to me to run the rule over them at the moment. I just hope they value for money and they do the job really. But it's a little bit concerning that their sort of lack of Premier League experience.
Yeah, definitely. The Pozzos have dipped into their known pool of players, haven't they? Really, with their scouting network. Obviously, they've scouted these players for years and years and kept eyes on them, and they think there's resale value in the players, all the players that they've brought over to the club. So it'd be interesting to see how they adapt. And like you say, Tom, they have to hit the ground running. Burnley coming up at Saturday. It's definitely it's a challenge. It's going to be difficult for any new signings to come in and play like against Burnley this weekend. James, how do you sum up Watford's transfer window? Did you want us to maybe look to bring in another one or two, or was you happy with the 6 that we have signed?
I'm happy. I think the positions we've brought the players in were the right positions. Obviously, like Samuel Kalu, I mean, pretty much all of the players we've brought in, I hadn't had a foggiest about whatsoever. I didn't even know they existed. But I have done some research since. Kamara looks like quite a good signing. Samir, obviously, from Udinese, that link is always going to be there under the Pozzos. It was needed, of course. We mentioned the clean sheet issue earlier in the podcast. It is a real issue for us. We do have to solidify ourselves at the back. Hopefully that they can help us do that. I found it quite interesting, actually. Late last night, transfer deadline day, Watford were linked with Dean Henderson from Manchester United. And obviously that didn't go through in the end, but I did find that quite interesting that there still is some sort of connection there, because there was a bit of a rumour about that in the summer. It's come back up in the winter. So whether something develops around that in the summer, we'll have to wait and see. And as Tom said, looking at the signings that have come in, we can't judge them currently. Yes, Samir made that mistake against Norwich. Kamara made a mistake against Norwich as well, but it's only their second game at the club. So I think patience, and we have to be patient. And even though it may be difficult because we haven't got much time left in this season to rescue ourselves, we do have to be patient with these signings. And if the worst happens and we get relegated, these signings could be the players who get us straight back up again. So I think patience is the key, and hopefully they can save us from relegation.
Yeah, let's hope so, mate. Tom, were you happy with the end of the transfer window shutting? Was there ever areas that you would have wanted to improve, or was you just generally pleased that we brought in those players early on in the transfer window?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I was quite pleased that it was done early. It was clear what our what we needed in terms of positional cover. Yeah, I mean, there could always be players that would improve us, and whoever we would have brought in, we wouldn't have been happy to, with the window really. I don't think. I'm not sure about the Dean Henderson one. I was particularly excited about, but you do tend to get the odd whisper at the end of the window, particularly in the Pozzo era, where there's not going to be any late activity, and then you get one. Maybe it's a bit of sort of agent talk, but yeah, again, we could have signed pretty much a whole new team, really, couldn't we, to put us back on track? But it's not the Pozzo way, and I think we've got serious financial constraints at the moment. So in the situation, I think it was all right. But again, we're not going to know until the end of the season whether these players, will work out. It's going to be so tough for them. A couple of them probably won't speak English. They're coming to England in January, which can't be very pleasant, from from Italy and from the rest of the continent. So it's huge challenges for them personally. Challenges for Roy, getting them all knitted into the squad and getting them gelling. But you have to hope, and you have to think at this stage that they're probably upgrades on what we've currently got. Another concern perhaps is, we've got this squad of 25, so who's going to miss out, and what's that going to do to the dressing room dynamic? There's a bit of a kind of scattergun approach sometimes with the recruitment policy of the Pozzos, but hopefully they got it right. We can just hope, really, can't we?
Yeah, we'll definitely know at the end of the season. It's interesting that you've mentioned about the financial issue at Watford a couple of times. Are you surprised that Watford haven't tried to offload some of these players? Like you say, we've got to submit a 25-man squad, and from my working out, about 4 players are going to end up missing that squad. So that's 4 players who are just collecting wages on the side. I'm not expecting us to just sell them, but just to get them out playing football somewhere on loan. I'm so surprised that we didn't see more outgoings yesterday. Like we only saw that Domingos Quina, he got recalled from Fulham because he wasn't featuring, and then he still the loan move to Barnsley. That's it from Watford on the outgoings. I was expecting so much more, James. Are you a bit puzzled and confused and being like, what?
Yeah, I was very, very baffled. I mean, it's just, these players are on a lot of money. They're collecting a lot of money a week. We're talking tens of thousands of pounds a week to basically be sitting around and doing nothing. In terms of players that I actually expected to leave yesterday, I think Dan Gosling was one. There was links with him going to Burnley, which never materialised. Ken Sema was another one. Ashley Fletcher was another one. And then in terms of the other player who we wouldn't register, I think that would probably be Danny Rose, just because of the issues he's had at the club. So I was very surprised that obviously, we didn't loan out these players to just get them some game time. Ashley Fletcher's on a 5-year contract. I think Dan Gosling's on a 2.5-year, 3-year contract. So these players have still got quite a long time left in their contracts, and they're just going to be sitting around, not contributing to the team and our fight against relegation. So it's a very, very baffling decision, and hopefully that can get looked at in the summer, because I don't know why they would do that. The only explanation to me would be no clubs were interested in the players, which I highly doubt, because if you're a footballer in the Premier League, you obviously have some talent. So I would expect at least some Championship clubs to have been sniffing around them players.
Yeah, Tom, I'm a bit confused as to how we're dishing out all these long-term contracts to players, especially with people we ended up signing last season, like the likes of Ashley Fletcher on a 5-year contract, who's barely kicked a football in the Premier League. I think he came off the bench for one game, and he was unlucky with a fantastic save to keep it as 1-0 to the other team. But he's not really had a sniff this season, so I was expecting him to go out on loan. But I think Watford have got an issue with handing out these long-term contracts, and I think it's just going to end up shooting themselves in the foot, isn't it, financially?
Well, I think it depends on if this has actually happened, but over the summer with Chalobah and Hughes leaving, the issue was over the relegation clauses. So what I would assume, based upon these long contracts that we've dished out, is that they're relatively low, relatively low salary, and that they're low risk, because if we do get relegated, their salaries will drop. So financially, it probably makes more sense and to tie them up for a few years, rather than perhaps risking a short-term contract. And we've seen that before with the likes of Gosling. Perhaps I don't think necessarily a long-term contract was suitable for him, but it's showing loyalty, I guess, and rewarding him for his work. I'm not sure how much the Pozzos sort of rely upon the terms of the contracts as well, particularly with the relationship with Udinese. They seem to be quite fluid in moving players usually, but yeah, I was a little bit mystified about the lack of outgoings. The only thing I can think of is that with the pandemic, it's financially hampered most of the football league. So perhaps we were asking for too much of a salary contribution. I don't know. But yeah, as I said, we've got this problem now where we've got an excess number of players, and they're not going to be happy. They've been registered for the first half of the season, and then they're not, and they're not playing football elsewhere. It could be have a real destabilizing effect. I just hope that they know what they're doing and they've got the right characters in there.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a difficult question for you both now. If you were in the shoes of whoever picks these 25-man squad, who out of those first team players would you miss out? Let's just say 4 have to miss out. James, I'll come to you first, throw you under the bus. Which 4 of those players gonna miss out?
I think, well, I've mentioned them already. I think Danny Rose, obviously, because he's got these well-documented issues, which I won't comment on, because quite frankly, us as fans have no idea what's going on with that situation. But there obviously is an issue there. So I think Danny Rose for me. Dan Gosling, because we did bring in Kayembe. Obviously, Atevo's coming back as well. So I think Dan Gosling for me is out. Ashley Fletcher, purely because of the talent they've got in attack. You think of João Pedro, Hernandez, Joshua King, Ismail Assar. There's plenty of players there, and Ashley Fletcher as well. So those are my 4 players, and ultimately it's nothing to do with them. It's just the way Watford have recruited. I do think Samuel Kalu was an unnecessary signing. We could have just registered Ashley Fletcher rather than signing Samuel Kalu. It is very, very baffling. But yeah, those are the 4 players I'd leave out ideally.
Yeah, Tom, have you got anything different in that?
Yeah, I think Nkulu's supposed to be out until April. I think so. I think that's just a bit too late, and he's going to have rustiness as well from the period out. Period injured. So I wouldn't personally register him. Agree. Probably Gosling. Unfortunately, and yeah, Danny Rose. The situation there seems to be something that they can't recover. And perhaps the only other player that I wrote down was the keeper. Whether we can get away with having 2 keepers, I don't know. I think it will depend. Maybe this is where the Roy Hodgson role of manager will come in, and he'll have a bit more of a say about the players that will be kept. And I think with Fletcher particularly, I know he's not played hardly at all this season, but perhaps he's a bit of a plan B player in the mould of Hodgson. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was registered. But I think if they fit into the Roy Hodgson system, then they should get a run out. I was a bit surprised about Sema, actually, that he didn't go to Udinese. But having heard the Hodgson interview on Hive Live, he was talking to him in Swedish or something. So perhaps the writing was on the wall then. Maybe he just wants someone to chat to on the training ground.
I think he's what was it, 5 or 6 languages Roy Hodgson knows? I was very surprised about that.
Incredible, yeah. Very talented bloke.
That's going to be very useful with this Watford squad, with the amount of languages that get spoken at London Colney. I think I've read something that Roy Hodgson was telling a story once. I think it was at Palace, and he walked past this bunch of French guys, and they was all talking in French, and Roy Hodgson walked past them, and they was talking about Hodgson and like his training methods or something, or what's just happened. And Roy Hodgson stopped, turned around, and replied back in French saying, I know exactly what you've just said, and then carried on walking. So I thought that was great, because you wouldn't expect it from an Englishman, because we're quite lazy, really, where we don't really learn different languages, and we're very lucky that people in other countries, they speak English and that's like their second language. So we were so fortunate we got that. So it's very rare to find Englishmen to speak 4 or 5 languages. So that's only going to help Watford. I've just seen a message from Paul as well. He says, I think we've kept Gosling, Sema and Fletcher with the Championship in mind next season. And I don't think I can maybe disagree with that. I think you're probably right there, Paul. Especially with us flirting with relegation, you probably want the players who are going to perform in the Championship. Gosling's going to do that. You saw Sema's figures with his assists and goals in the Championship, and then Fletcher's a Championship striker as well. I know he's not going to get you maybe 15 a season, but he could easily get you 10 with the right delivery into the box. I think you're right there, Paul. And he's also had another question just before that saying, how confident are you that we'll stay up? For me, I worry it's out of our hands to a degree. In fact, Newcastle has spent well to stay up, and that will keep us down. Tom, are you worried by Newcastle's spending power towards the end of a transfer window? Do you think that's what's going to keep Newcastle in division, maybe relegate Watford?
I think we've got to be a little bit worried about that, looking outward, because it's likely to be 3 from 4 of the teams that are down there now. They look to have brought in some quality, some good Premier League players as well, like Dan Burn from Brighton. I think they brought in a Brazilian centre midfielder as well. So they've obviously got upgrades. But they've got Eddie Howe, so we've got a chance.
Yeah, we don't like Eddie Howe on this podcast, Ben, do we?
No, especially Mike. He's not Eddie Howe's biggest fan. But then again, Watford don't like Eddie Howe. And Eddie Howe seems to have something against Watford, even though he grew up in Cheshire and used to go to Vicarage Road to watch Watford as a youngster. So I don't get why he dislikes Watford so much. But yeah, like you say, Eddie Howe. See, I don't know. I don't think they've improved their squad enough to stay in the division. I know it's going to be tough for us to stay up, but if Hodgson gets his ideas across and Watford actually they're very, very solid and difficult to play against, and we can start getting these clean sheets, and then we're going to score up the other end of the pitch. I do think there's still a chance that Watford can stay in this division. I was expecting Newcastle to improve their front line. I don't think they've done that. I think they've brought Chris Wood in, but his figures for Burnley this season have been shocking, and I think they've just wasted money down the drain pipe there. I think midfield is an issue for them as well, attacking midfield especially. I know they tried to get Jesse Lingard in and that failed. So attacking wise, I don't think Newcastle are brilliant. They're still going to heavily rely on Alex and Maximin. I think defensively they have improved. I think they've brought in Target from Villa at left back, who's going to shore up that place. Dan Burn, who I think is very underrated. I do like him. He's been solid for Brighton for many of years. And to think he started his career right back maybe at Fulham, then Potter's actually converted him into a bit more of a centre back. But he's so solid, wins everything in the air, and that's going to improve Newcastle's defence. And I'm surprised they haven't brought in a goalkeeper as well. They do have a decent goalkeeper in Dubravka, but I think he does bring errors in their games as well. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I don't think Newcastle are going to stay up just because they spent money. I think they have to perform to deserve to stay in this division. You can't just buy your way out the league. And I think maybe bringing in these 4 or 5 players in the transfer window, like Watford have, you need them to gel quickly. And I think Newcastle, if they don't gel quickly, they could be in trouble. The Brazilian lad coming in, does he speak English? Is that going to affect him getting on with the other players and understand what Eddie Howe wants from him? The jury's out. Who knows what's going to happen? But I don't.
Do you know? I think. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think that it's looking at. I think we can sort of be a bit guilty sometimes of looking at other sides and getting the sort of green-eyed monster of envy. I think at this stage, I mean, I'll be honest, hands up. I'm not hopeful, but we do have pretty much half a season left, and it's still in our hands. So there's a chance there. I think if Roy can get us playing, then we would have done it through merit rather than other sides. But yeah, the spending power of Newcastle is a worry. But yeah, ultimately, we've got to win more points than them, and I think we've got a squad that's capable of that and capable of putting a run together. It's just the Norwich game was such a huge blow that I think it's kind of set us back a little bit. But hopefully, coming on to Burnley, we will. That's where it starts. Hopefully.
Yeah, let's hope we can start a run at Burnley. It's going to be difficult, James, at Turf Moor. This is our 3rd time doing a preview on Burnley, so we're not going to go into depth on it. We'll touch on it very quickly. Obviously, Watford will have Adam Messina and Imran Louza back with the squad after Morocco got knocked out of the African Cup of Nations. So that's going to be a boost for Watford, especially Imran Louza. I'm not going to say Adam Messina is a boost. We know you don't know what you're going to get from Adam Messina, but the signs that I saw of Louza before he went to African Cup of Nations was promising, and I liked what I saw. I don't know whether he's going to start at Burnley, but it's refreshing to know that he's back. And Ismaila Sarr, he scored at the weekend as well. I know he won't be back for the Burnley game because obviously there's another game in the African Cup of Nations, but that's refreshing to know that we've got Sarr coming back and he's going to feel like a brand new signing when he comes back as well, and exactly what we need. But yeah, James, Burnley, tough place to go to. Sean Dyche, tough manager to face against. Their defence, tough. See where I'm going? It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very tough. Very strange kickoff time as well. 6 p.m. on a Saturday in the Premier League. You don't get very many of them. It is going to be a very, very tough game. Obviously, they've just signed this absolutely massive striker in Weghorst. I think he's 6'6", 6'7". Really, really prolific goal scorer. Actually, he averages 15, 16 goals a season. And I'd expect him to start against Watford on Saturday. The reason Burnley couldn't play us was essentially due to not having enough players, and they brought him in. They lost Chris Wood. I'd say it's probably an upgrade actually, and I'm very, very concerned. Maxwell Cornet's back for them. Dwight McNeil's always a threat, so I am worried. If we thought the Norwich game was big, this is now even bigger. So I don't really know what to expect. It's Roy Hodgson's first game in charge. Third time lucky playing this game. So hopefully the footballing gods are looking down on us, and they can actually give us Watford fans something to cheer, which would be very, very nice.
I do like what Burnley did yesterday when they announced the signing, but they related it around Jurassic Park, and I thought that's absolutely hilarious and brilliant, especially for me who's a massive Jurassic Park fan. I thought finally a Premier League club or a football team infused that as an announcement. I thought it was class. I wish Watford did something like that, but then again, we've not really gone in the market for tall strikers lately, have we? So, Tom, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Are you hopeful of a result at Burnley?
You're
travelling up as well, aren't you? So you're going to have to be hopeful.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of driving. So yeah, I hope I don't. It's all not in vain. But yeah, I think what you're going to get with Burnley. As James said, they've just signed a player that very, very much fits their mould. He's going to be a real battering ram. But equally, they've got their own problems. They're in the relegation zone for a reason, and we're going to be a bit of a wild card as well. They're not going to be able to game plan us because there's nothing to go on. It's going to be a new system likely, and in all honesty, we're not really sure who's going to play and in what position. So there's a definite benefit to kind of catch them off guard. But yeah, it's going to be a real meat and potatoes game, isn't it? Sean Dyche with his gravelly voice on one sideline, and Roy Hodgson with all of his experience on the other. It's I'm not sure why it's on TV, to be honest, but it's hopefully if we can grab nick a 1-0 win, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I bet BT Sport are looking at it going, who sanctioned this? Who's put Burnley Watford on 6 p.m. on a Saturday? But yeah, it's going to be a tight old game. Like you say, Sean Dyche against Roy Hodgson. It's not going to be the most attractive game of football. I think Watford fans have came to that realization. It's not going to be pretty now to stay in the division. It's all going to be about dirty football now. It's going to be about unattractive football. But if that keeps you up in the division, I'll happily take that all day long. For me, it's all about keeping Maxwell Cornet quiet. I think he is a danger man. It's unfortunate this game's been rearranged twice because now we're going to have to come up against him, and we could have played against Burnley when I was weaker. So I'm not looking forward to his presence being back in that Burnley side. Let's do some score predictions quickly. James, come to you first. I know you normally give us two, a hopeful one and then one that you actually think's going to happen.
Yeah.
Go on, chuck us your two.
Okay, so in my heart, I'm hoping that Watford will keep a clean sheet, and I'm hoping we'll score lots of goals. So in my heart, I'm going for 3-0 to Watford. But as Tom says, it's going to be a very, very scrappy game. So in reality, I can probably see it panning out in something like a 1-1 or a boring 0-0. I tell you what, it would be a shame if after all this time the game ends 0-0. I think that would be such a shame. So hopefully there'll be goals, but hopefully them goals will be going to Watford and not to Burnley. So those are my score predictions.
I love your hopeful ones. They always make me chuckle. 3-0 against Burnley away.
Well, you've always got to go into games positive, Ben. You've always got to go into them with a little bit of hope.
All right, I'm hopeful. 10-0 Watford.
Maybe not that much hope. Maybe not that much.
Tom, you've got that long old journey to do. Are you driving up there, or are you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going up with my brother. I'm stopping off in Sheffield, so should break up the journey. But
yeah,
it's gonna be a long
break
one.
it up with. That's a long old journey otherwise. But yeah, let's hopefully it all goes ahead and there's nothing to call it off this time. What's your score prediction for the game?
I haven't really got a hopeful one like James, but I'll go for a 1-1. I think it'll probably be quite a frustrating game, but I don't think a point would be terrible in the circumstances. I'll go 1-1. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
not very
with you.
exciting.
No, don't worry about it, mate. It's not going to be exciting now, is it, really, for Watford fans? I'm going to go 1-1 as well. I think a point's not a bad result away to Burnley, as long as you don't lose. I think it's a must-not-lose game. You can't afford to lose to Burnley. I think they'll possibly overtake us in the table. They've got games in hand as well, so yeah, can't lose to Burnley. So make it as ugly as you want, Roy, but don't come away from Turf Moor with no points. Try and bring something back for Tom, because it's a long old journey back.
Do it for me.
Quick point to make as well. Emmanuel Dennis is actually going to be missing for this, because he did pick up that red card, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think there will be a change of formation, like Tom said as well. Roy Hodgson likes the 4-4-2, so I can imagine it would be just Dennis coming out, obviously through suspension. So I don't think that's going to affect the team too much. I'll probably see Josh King down the middle. We might, who knows? He might even throw an extra midfielder in. He might go a 4-5-1 or something for that. But extra man in midfield would probably play just behind Josh King, so when we're attacking, he can add it into a 4-4-2. It'd be interesting to see how we actually line up and who actually starts. But yeah, I'm going to go 1-1 draw as well. Just before we go, thank you for everyone who's watched on YouTube and that. If you don't mind giving us a like, subscribing to the page, leave your comments down below as well. We read everything that you write, and thank you for everyone who's left the comments today as well, and for joining us on our chat. This will be going out as an actual podcast tomorrow evening, so check it out on there as well. Just quickly before we wrap it up, Tom, let's talk about the fanzine quickly. You've got a new issue coming out for the Brighton home game next week. Fantastic cover that's on the front, that's been created by Thomas J Design on Twitter. Such a talented guy. How did you manage to pull that one off? Because boy, that's a flippy cover.
Yeah, well, my persuasive skills are obviously improving. No, it's unbelievable cover. Absolutely chuffed that Tom's agreed to do that. Obviously, we've seen his numerous incredible stadium banners that he's done at Vicarage Road. So yeah, it's a real feather in the cap, that one. But yeah, this issue, it's still editing, hoping to finish it tonight and get it off to the printers. But yeah, it's one I'm quite proud of, that I can donate all proceeds to Raise, which is a West Hertfordshire hospitals charity. So I'm grateful to be in a position to do that, and to make that small contribution that we can. So yeah, everyone, if they can come and see me opposite the Red Lion, shivering probably at this time of year. It's £3, 48 pages, some brilliant stuff in this one. We've got second part of the Jay Demerit interview. We've got some discussion points about the Pozzo ownership as a whole, and yeah, just lots of funny little bits as well. So yeah, it'll be really grateful if people could pick up a copy. Alex, the other seller, will be doing a couple of away games as well, and I think I'm going to Villa as well. So if I can sell there, I can. But yeah, the proceeds going to Raise. So it's it's a worthy cause, and I hope it provides a bit of light relief in these struggling times for Watford. Although, in the grand scheme of things, probably not that difficult. But yeah, it's never fun in a relegation fight, is it?
No, not at all. But yeah, that's absolutely fantastic, mate, that you're doing a charity issue of your fanzine. So if you are interested in the latest fanzine copy, Musa Sissoko is on the cover of it. Go see Tom at the next home game against Brighton. Probably bring him a hot chocolate or a tea as well, because he's going to be shivering. So he'll appreciate that. I'd warm him up as well. But yeah, like he said, all the money going to charity as well, which is absolutely fantastic. But what he's doing for charity and for the fanzine. So hats off to you, Tom. thank you very much for joining us again on the Voices of Vic. I'm sorry I haven't prepared you with that hat-trick ball. I'll see what I can do for next time. Maybe I'll do what Soccer AM do. I'll give it to you on your 5th appearance, and we'll put it in like a tub or something and sign it. Me and James will sign it for you.
Yeah, I'll take that. No, thanks for having me. It's been great, and well done on the podcast. It's a great listen.
Thank you.
Brilliant, mate. I really appreciate that. And that's it for tonight. Me and James will be back for the review of the Burnley game at the weekend. Let's hope it's 3 points. James's 3-0 victory. Not sure that's going to come up. We're hopeful. Let's hope to see if it happens. But yeah, me and James will be back at the weekend. Stay safe and come on, you Orleans.